This is my favorite big picture analysis video to make all season because I'm passionate about the topic. I think that we all know by now that direct correlation to hit that high upside in our lineups is what we want to win tournaments. And look, we're all out here trying to hit the 5K, 10K, 100K screenshot life, bragging life, feeling incredible life. We're all trying to do it. Because of this, everybody has become hyper focused on game stacks and run it back stacks. That's how I start this video every single week. So I'm going to start the video the same way, but I have more to say. First things first, Seahawks and Bills is a fantastic game to stack. However, every single slate is its own puzzle where we have to put the pieces together. And if we look at this slate in particular, there's really only one good game, the Seahawks and Bills. So because we know that everybody is focused on this same thought process, or at least most people, plenty of people that are playing in these tournaments with you, this is going to be a popular game to stack. Now let's start with why that is, and then I can get into some other thoughts. First, obviously, it makes a ton of sense. If you're making multiple tournament lineups, you do want to stack this game. I'm not saying don't do that. I think that there's leverage to be had in other areas. But first of all, Seahawks third in offensive DVOA, let Russ cook season. Bills eighth in offensive DVOA. We know the upside that Josh Allen has on the ground and through the air. He showed it earlier this year. He's shown it last year. And this is a spot where that could absolutely come to fruition with Russ putting that pressure on him, especially because both quarterbacks have good matchups. The Seahawks are 21st in defensive DVOA. Jamal Adams is coming back, though, very significant. And the Bills, surprisingly, I thought had one of the best defenses in football coming into the year. That just has not been the case. The Bills are 23rd in defensive DVOA. So absolutely a good game to stack. But that's really it. This is the thing. There's two ways to take down tournaments. There's game stacks and there's domination stacks. And I wrote an article 4.5 years ago, which I retweeted before last week's games, because I thought the Chiefs were in a perfect situation for a domination stack, which did play out. And I had one team that came very, very close to taking down a tournament. If I played Giovanni Bernard over Lev Bell, I got stuck on the narrative, which is another good lesson to learn. Don't always get stuck on the narrative. I had to learn that the hard way. If I play Gio over Lev Bell, I actually take down the tournament and win 4 Gs. So I was right there. And so I'm bringing this up because I think the process was right. And shockingly, because I do not think that domination stacks are all that common. I do think that they're pretty rare. But shockingly, I think that there's two very significant ones on this slate, which allows us to target those and gain leverage over the field. The first one is the Steelers. The Steelers are 7-0, have the best defense in football, in my opinion, second according to Football Outsiders defensive DVOA, and they're 14th in offensive DVOA. They got James Conner, Big Ben, and a plethora of weapons. I think it's a juju week. Deontay Johnson is not on the injury report. Chase Claypool is a stud. Eric Ebron can get it done. Above average offense, great defense, going against an embarrassing excuse for a football team that is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, it's not all their fault. Dak Prescott got hurt. If he didn't, this would be a different story. This may be a game stack at that point rather than a domination stack. But the Cowboys are so bad that if we, just try to project what's going to happen with this game, the Steelers' defense should ball out. And they should give the ball back to the Steelers' offense time and time again. What should that produce? That should produce offensive touchdowns for the Steelers. I talked about it last week, I don't know about Mahomes because he might be sitting in the third quarter. Well, what do you have to do as a professional NFL team trying to win a game to be sitting your starters in the third quarter or for the whole fourth quarter? You have to ball out, and you have to be up by 20, 28, 30 plus before any team is going to sit there and mail it in. So if the Steelers do the same thing, it will be because they have scored so many points. I think the Steelers score 5 touchdowns in this game. My official prediction is 41 points, 5 touchdowns, and 2 field goals, and I think they dominate. And if they do that, then every single offensive player on the Steelers is in play in this game. You can make Big Ben stacks with relatively affordable Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, Eric Ebron. None of them are, priced like if you want to make a Chiefs stack Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. DeAndre Hopkins, even Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. You can fit them in, and even though James Conner's a little bit more expensive, especially on FanDuel, he makes a ton of sense because you can stack him with the Steelers' defense. But my whole point is that I don't think you have to stop there. I think the Steelers will score so many points that you can basically make a stack for this game with only Steelers. And I'm not done there, because you also look at the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson is one of the best quarterbacks in football, and he's absolutely capable of putting up domination stacks just like we saw Patrick Mahomes do last week. Why am I passionate about it? Well, Watson's playing against the Jaguars, who first and foremost, he just flamed back in, I think, week 5 for like over 350 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, this same awful Jaguars team, arguably the worst team in football, other than the Jets, of course, are actively tanking. They're actively benching Gardner Minshew and putting in, I don't even know the guy's name. The Jaguars are so bad, and it's a very similar situation. They're bad on offense, and they're dead last in defensive DVOA, according to Football Outsiders, and they're dead last in pass DVOA. Well, how do the Texans ball out? They ball out through Deshaun Watson. Now, does that mean that David Johnson can't have a Joe Mixon type performance against the Jaguars? No, David Johnson could. He had over 100 total yards against the Jaguars in week 5, just didn't find the end zone. But if he has over 100 total yards and a couple of touchdowns in this one, would you be surprised? I wouldn't. However, my main source of wanting to attack this game is Deshaun Watson stacks, because I think he throws for 350 and 3 again. And I think that there's leverage to be had because, Will Fuller was going to get traded. Well, guess what? He didn't. So I'm trying to learn my lesson on the Lev Bell narrative from last week and kind of attack the opposite end of the spectrum by playing Will Fuller this week because he didn't get traded. So it doesn't matter. He's going to be a 90% player in one of the best spots all year. Brandon Cooks continues to be way too cheap, and Randall Cobb is cheap. Randall Cobb balled out before the bye, and that's another aspect of this. The Texans didn't play last week. They were on bye. We know that recency bias plays such a significant factor in lineup building in NFL because there's only one game a week. So we've already forgotten about the Texans because they haven't shown us anything in 2 weeks, but every single one of their offensive players is in play as well. So we look at this and we say, okay, the Seahawks and Bills game is going to be super popular. And for the most part, the major plays are pretty obvious. Now, if you're going to stack that game, it does make sense to get a little bit contrarian. Throw in a Will Dissly, throw in a David Moore, throw in a John Brown, a Gabriel Davis. That's fine. But if you're just going Russ, Lockett, Steph Diggs, a lot of people are going to do that. My whole point is that you can make lineups completely without Seattle and Buffalo players at all, which sounds like suicide, right? Because it's the only best game of the week. But if you make kind of a double domination stack with a lot of Steelers and a lot of Texans, I think you're on the board. I really, really do. And then, of course, we have the Chiefs at home against the Panthers, a defense that I've continued to attack all year, and we should continue to do that. We know, I learned my lesson with Lev Bell, that the running backs are tough to predict. Sammy Watkins is officially ruled out, which is something that we were waiting on. So Demarcus Robinson, who I was all over last week, why not run it back with him again? Demarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman, they're affordable pieces to the puzzle, and it could be another domination stack. I definitely think that the Panthers have a chance to either allow this to be a domination stack or Teddy could play competitive enough, especially with Christian McCaffrey coming back, to maybe make this a game stack. So obviously we have to consider the Chiefs as well. So Steelers, Texans, Chiefs, you don't even have to play Seattle, Buffalo at all. If you're making multiple tournament teams, of course, diversify. But this is why I'm so passionate about this week, because I'm not even done. One more that we definitely want to talk about is the Chargers-Raiders game. I'm looking at this more from the Chargers. The Raiders are a good team, but from a fantasy perspective, they don't get me excited. Like, I'm not trying to predict when Nelson Aguilar is going to pop off. Get the hell out of here, right? So Justin Herbert, who's been balling all year at home against a Raiders defense, which is 31st, second worst in the entire league, according to Football Outsiders defensive DVOA. We have a running back situation, which is a little bit tough to predict. I want to go right back to the well with Justin Herbert. You've got Keenan Allen, who everybody is into, but Mike Williams is a tournament play. Jalen Guyton, even though he doesn't get a ton of targets, I tweeted out his snap percentages. He's on the field, and we've seen him make multiple deep catches from Herbert. So if he has a 70-yard touchdown, he's in play. And then Hunter Henry has been playing a ton. His snap count spiked with Virgil Green on IR, which sounds crazy to say, but Virgil Green's out here catching touchdowns. Well, he's not playing now. So Hunter Henry is the main tight end, and I think is a very good play this week. If you want to sneak in some Chargers exposure, sneak in Hunter Henry, sneak in Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, and you have enough right there to make a tournament-winning lineup without hyper-focusing on the game stack, because that's the other portion of this. You know, we continue to say, well, who are you going to run it back with? This is the main slate. You do not have to run it back with anyone. And trust me, I totally understand that that's been extremely successful and is going to be something that I will continue to attack consistently. However, this week, I do not think you have to run it back at all. Because am I going to run it back with any Jaguars, with a team that's actively tanking, with a quarterback I know nothing about? No, I'm not touching the Jaguars. Why would I? When I can just load up on Steelers, load up on Texans, get cheap exposure to the Chiefs, or go heavy there, get exposure to the Chargers, sneak in maybe one Seahawk or Bill. I'm not saying you can't play anybody. We've got the Vikings in a good spot. Dalvin Cook makes all the sense in the world in all formats. That is, to me, how we attack this slate. And hopefully, this will be the week that I can put it together, or one of you guys can put it together. So, appreciate all of you. Happy week 9. Hope you are doing fine.